Stop us if you've heard this one before, but Tottenham Leeds scored a lot of goals, conceded a lot of goals. Tottenham thought they were out. They were back in. What a game at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium as they win. Antonio Conte's men win 4-3 against Jesse Marsch's Leeds United. A lot to discuss. Initial thoughts. Luis Miguel Echegaray here, LME. Janusz Michallik. Janusz, what a game. A 7-goal thriller for the good and the bad and the ugly. Give me your initial thoughts, my friend.
A big one, because I didn't think that Spurs were going to do it, right? You go behind 3 times and you think no matter who you play, it's going to be one of those. And, mind you, that Spurs have lost the 2 games before that. It didn't look all that pretty. So massive wins. Devil in the detail, which I'm sure we're going to break that down just a little bit. But at the end of the day, if you're Antonio Conte, you take that, of course, because Spurs somehow hang about, right? I mean, they're 3rd place with Manchester City losing. We don't know what Arsenal may or may not do, but that's all we are talking about. We are talking about Arsenal and Manchester City, right? We haven't even talked about Liverpool just yet because they are where they are. But Spurs just quietly, not in the great way, are in a position to be obviously top 4, and who knows after that, right? So it's a Antonio Conte character comeback. Although in terms of defensive ability, organization, we cannot let Antonio Conte off the hook.
Let's stay with that, Janusz, because obviously the scoring was opened by Leeds United. And Rodrigo, you mentioned the defensive frailties, and it wasn't until later in the game when the subs came in. Kulusevski, of course, a big impact in this one. But defensively speaking, it seems to be happening more often than not with an Antonio Conte side. Obviously, they like to push forward, but they're always vulnerable on the counter, and Leeds took advantage, specifically in the first half.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, the first goal, I think may have been the best thing for Spurs in a way, because we know home or away, but even at home, they sit back, right? I mean, they're not the side that attacks. They only usually wake up and show their quality when they go behind, right? So this time they went behind 3 times, but that makes them play, which I think suits that team if you look at the players. It doesn't necessarily suit Antonio Conte. And the reason I don't want to let him off the hook in a way defensively is because I'm a big fan. I know you're a big fan. But I mean, in terms of discipline defensively, I mean, they've conceded 21 goals. I mean, every goal they concede multiple times. And there's only so much you can put down to the fact that they've been missing players. That's a good thing. It's a legitimate excuse in terms of going forward and in terms of defensively. We saw no Romero, but that's not good enough. Lenglet, he had to change. He felt he had to change Lenglet during the game, right? They still conceded after that. It's not that Davinson Sanchez came in and everything has changed. But the issue is not just defensively, it's as a team. They don't defend well. And Antonio Conte is a master in that, and he's been there long enough. So let's not get, because I always defend him. I love him, and that doesn't change. However, he's got to coach this team up, no matter who's in and no matter who's out. That's on Antonio Conte. This is drama. This is almost like one of the notes I've meant that, Leeds can't play a game without drama. They either win it or lose it at the death. And then I said, well, Spurs are sort of the same. So in terms of Antonio Conte, that's very unusual. We can say about Jesse Marsch the same, by the way, because he likes to be organized and good defensively. So this game, I didn't see that coming. 4-3, no way.
Yeah, it was crazy. And of course, the beginning of the second half, you saw that redemption side at least trying to fight back from Antonio Conte's side as Leeds were dominating, at least for segments of the match. But as you mentioned, Jesse Marsch also and their Leeds United, I mean, great stuff to see, obviously, 3 goals from an away side. We know what they did against Chelsea beforehand. We know what they did against Liverpool as well. It seemed like these top 5, top 6 teams, Leeds United always show up. But always, Janusz, defensively, especially against off the ball, they just always give the opportunity to the opponent to score.
Yes, Jesse, I mean, we'll press. I think sometimes it seems to me that maybe he misses that nuance or when to hold back his team a little bit, right? I mean, I don't even want to say that it comes with an experience because he's been a manager for a little bit now. Maybe it's an inexperience of Premier League. He's got to be learning very quickly that You know what I mean? You have to cash it in when it's there, right? Know when to sell, as we sometimes say. And I think that's part of the problem with him, because we see those games time and time again where he wants more. His team continues to attack, and it's great for the neutral. It's great for to watch. But after matches that you mentioned, the Chelsea, Liverpool, you look at this, leading 3 times away at Spurs. Again, players, of course, are on the front line, but I think in terms of substitutions there, he could have made a difference. They were lucky and unlucky in this game, I suppose. That foul on Tyler Adams there, the Rodrigo goal. Look, I don't know. I mean, it looked to me that maybe there was a contact there from Tyler Adams. Ultimately, he saw a second yellow card and a red card, which is obviously not good, because Tyler Adams has been very, very good. But I think that Jesse Marsch, for my money, has to find a way of managing himself and managing the team within the game, because we've seen that on numerous occasions.
Yeah, as you were discussing, looking at the table here, Leeds United 14th, but to your point, they've conceded 26 goals, and that's only Nottingham Forest and Southampton have conceded more goals. You mentioned a piece of advice for Jesse Marsch. What advice do you have for Antonio Conte as he now prepares for a break in between the World Cup?
Well, I think, if you look at that team, he's got a lot going for himself. Look at Kulusevski coming back. We saw that in his first game when he came back with a little bit of an assist, right? I mean, absolutely outstanding. Rodrigo Bentancur, I've been saying here to you and everybody week in and week out, the most consistent player on that team, if not the best. I would say the best, but, you have to leave that to Harry Kane. Even though Antonio Conte stated that he's been absolutely exhausted. Look, I'd like to be as exhausted as he is, scoring, what is it now, 12 goals, right? We often talk about Erling Haaland. You and I have talked about that. Remember, there was talk about Harry Kane going to Manchester City, right? I mean, for a lot of
a legitimate offer, correct?
Legitimate offer, right? And put that in perspective, because that 12 goals that Harry Kane scoring for Spurs, while Son's out, while Richarlison just came back, Kulusevski just came back, nowhere near the service that let's say he would have gotten in Manchester City. That 12 goals to me is the same as Haaland 18, and that's not for me to knock Haaland down, but I think sometimes you make too much of Erling Haaland. He's young, that's obviously a bonus. He costs less than Harry Kane would have, although his wages are probably probably make up the difference. But what Harry Kane is doing consistently year in and year out is absolutely incredible. And I'm absolutely convinced that had he been on Manchester City, he'd be scoring those goals, and who knows, maybe doing even a little bit more. Because I think in an overall game, Harry Kane has more to offer than Erling Haaland. So I left that for Harry Kane, and I think in terms of Antonio Conte, I think I don't know. He's got to pray that nothing happens. Go to church every day during the World Cup, that nothing happens to Harry Kane, and even if he's not fresh, even if he's exhausted, you'd like to have him.
Light those candles, Antonio Conte. You got to make sure that Harry Kane comes back very, very healthy indeed. But as the break begins for Tottenham before this World Cup, Tottenham in 3rd place. They have to hope that Newcastle don't get the job done, so they stay in that position.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.